Clusters are like little love notes that are made out of paper. They're tiny, layered moments that tell a story, that tell your story. But how do you make them feel effortless instead of like a jumbled mess? That's what we're diving into today. So grab your free mini kit and let's play with paper in a way that feels magical. Hi, welcome. I'm so glad that you are here today. And if you're here, it's because you want to learn how to layer or make clusters. And I'm so glad because that's something that's very close to my heart. So I'm going to start off by showing you the printables that I have for you. And to find these printables, it's really easy. You're just going to go onto this YouTube video. Right underneath, there's what is the description box. You're going to click where it says more, and then it's going to open up the description box. In there, I have always, well, I try to anyways, post videos that either correlate with the video that I have, or maybe it's something that you might be interested in. And in this case, I definitely have the file for you to download. It'll be the first link for you. So I hope you enjoy these, and I hope that you love them as much as I do. So we're going to start off with the first piece, and you're getting 3 printables. The first one is going to be these, I would say 1940s, maybe 1950s desserts. They're so good. I was surprised that there weren't a lot of Jell-O desserts. I know that that era had a lot of Jell-O stuff. And then, of course, some butterflies because they're beautiful. It's almost spring. It's almost spring. And I thought they would be fitting. To go with that, I also have this foliage, or they're illustrations of trees, and they're both rows are the same with the exception of the color coding. And then, if you've been with me for any amount of time, you know that I love to incorporate numerals as well as letters to all of my projects. And in this case, I took these, I think they are like font cards. Excuse me, I still have this little tickle of cough. These little font cards, and I absolutely love them. They bring me so much joy. So I shrunk them down and have them. And you're going to notice here that I have some pink on mine. Yours will not have that. This was my first print, so I just don't want to waste it. And then I have some little labels here, and the reason that I printed this is because I wanted to show you how to layer or make clusters. And I did the printable for 2 reasons. Number one was because I think that the easiest way to learn something is to copy something else. When my kids were young, we did classical learning, and what that is we are taking the concept of, let's say, music. When you start learning an instrument, it's very unlikely that a teacher is going to tell you to just start playing something. And so how do we start learning music is we take pieces that are classics and maybe not so classic sometimes, and then we learn those until we master them, and then we can keep going. And so with this concept, you can print this and follow along with me exactly the way that I'm doing it, with the exact same materials. I'll try to use very little extra, and if I use anything extra, I'll try to give you an alternative that you can use with supplies that you probably have on hand, or you can skip that altogether. The other thing is that I think that you would just enjoy printables, because I absolutely love printables, and I thought these would bless you. And I also want to say that these techniques all will work with any type of printables you have, whether, or any kind of ephemera that you have, whether they're printables or they're store-bought, or maybe it's ephemera that you've picked up from thrift stores or estate sales. The concept will be the same. It's just what you want to use with it. When I created this, I wanted there to be a base layer, which is going to be my numeric, or my, you can, do this with, let's say, tickets or ads, anything like that, receipts. And then I have my next layer, which was my foliage, my next layer, which is going to be either my butterflies or my desserts, and then topped off with a beautiful label. And so as long as we're using that same idea, and we'll talk a little bit more about sizing and textures and all that as we get going in the video. Sometimes when I'm fussy cutting, I cheat a little, and instead of going right to the edge, which would be right here, sometimes I'll go in and cheat a little bit inside the edge so that I can make sure that I don't have that dreaded white line. Another thing I like to do when I'm cutting clusters, or cutting out my ephemera, is I like to have a pile where my discard goes, or my white pieces, and then a pile where my ephemera goes. So I'm going to show you here. So that'll drop into my ephemera pile, and then the little white strip here will drop into my discard pile. And I find that this just keeps the pieces all where they're supposed to be and helps to keep me a little more organized. I'm going to go ahead and cut all of the ephemera, that is the butterflies, the desserts, and the trees, with a border around it, as you can see here. And if I want to take that border off once I am layering, then I can do so at that point. But this is going to make this a little bit easier and quicker, obviously, because I don't have to be as concerned about getting close to the sections. Another thing that I like to do is, for example, here we have, kind of a line here. So I try to cut out as much of the white space, and then I go with that. It'll make this process a lot easier. So if you want to go, cut out all of your pieces, and we will meet back in just a moment. Okay, I've got all of my ephemera pieces cut out now, and I'm going to grab this zipper pouch that I have, and it just has my offcuts or little scrap pieces, and I'm going to have this to the side. We're going to talk about this in a minute. It's not necessary, but I'm going to pull it out to show you how to use it. And then the only other thing that I would suggest that maybe you have is either some fabric, or if you don't have access to any fabric, you can also use things like vellum or papers that have like a different type of texture. And I'm going to show you, it would be for layering, but that's kind of like more advanced. I'm going to show you how we're just going to use these things, and then you can either grab a stapler or you can use some glue. Whichever you want to do is up to you. Both are really great. I love mixing both as well. So I'm going to take my card, and I'm not just grabbing a card, any card. So this is the one that says, does it say Telegram? I don't know. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to start my layering pieces. So remember, we talked about having the layers, and this would be 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so I'm going to grab this, pick one out, and I might end up cutting these down more. I also left some, just 2, where it is almost like a little card in itself. I actually kind of like that as well, but I think for this first demonstration, oh, this might be better. We'll do this. Another thing you can do is you can ink the edges instead of cutting it out. That's definitely an option. I'm not a big inker. I don't know why. Like, I like using the distress stains and inks, and but I don't ink the edges a lot. Sometimes I feel like when I'm inking, I tend to go a little ruddy. It starts getting dirty looking, which, yes, some vintage stuff is dirty looking. That's the point, but sometimes I don't want to go for that look, especially with something like this where I'm using pinks. I think it would lend itself better maybe to the greens, but you can see how quickly I cut this tree out, that it doesn't take that long. And it's a little therapeutic to do. Sorry if you hear anything in the background. It's my trusty dog Barkley. He's been quiet the whole time I was cutting, but now he wants to chew on something. So I like the number, so I'm gonna, oops, that's very, you can see it's very thin, so I have to be careful. And if you watch my last video, I was talking about these nails, and they're just a little chunkier than I'm used to. And now you're gonna see when I lay this on, it's just a little better. The other thing that you can do here is, if you notice on this ephemera piece, there's some white spaces. And that's because this was an illustration, whereas, or like a hand-drawn illustration, I would say, maybe more like a line drawing, whereas this is an actual like clip art, or, you know, a full color image. I think I'm saying that backwards, but even here, like when you're looking at the little wings, they're not white, they're like an off-white, and whereas this is the paper behind it. So you could, one of the things that I like to do is I like to grab a pokey tool. You could use a needle as well, it doesn't have to be a pokey tool, and then I sometimes distress the edges. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And with everything, just go to the level that you're comfortable with. And you can get as creative with this as you want, or if you're looking for something that's more simple, then by all means go more simple. The other thing I can do is grab an X-Acto knife and I can kind of start shredding. And I don't want to take out all the way, I just want to shred it a little bit. And you can definitely go thicker in some areas than other areas. And if you can see that, let's see if kind of see through there. Actually, let's see. There you go. You can see that that is cut out. That has a little hole, and this has some scrapes. So, but it's up to you how deep you want to go. So this is going to be, so remember, for the second layer, this is our first layer, this is our second layer. This layer sometimes can be kind of a hidden layer where you see pieces of it, but not all of it. That's a design that I like to do. And I think that that is kind of cute. I'm gonna look at one of the butterflies. I don't like that as much. And so I'm gonna go ahead and then depending on what I want showing, I'm gonna turn this. So if I want this text to show through, then I would layer to the other side. If I want this to show through, I would layer to that side. And I actually think I like this a little better. So now, and the other thing you can do here is you can kind of wiggle these pieces so that some of the tree covers the dessert, or you can do it like that. Or you can do it where the dessert covers the tree, or where the tree covers the dessert. So I like playing with the idea of this a little bit. And now I'm going to move this up a little because we're going to add our label. And I'm going to grab simple. Okay, so now I'm going to just take my stapler and I usually like adding 2 staples, and you can glue down the bits that you want, but if not, you're completely done. And you saw that was just a second. Now we can take this up a notch where we can take this and distress it either with scissors or with inks. And I'm just going to add a little bit. I don't want a ton of distressing, but I do want it to look like it's a little worn. Another thing I like to do is take the corners and just, I like snip it. I put my hand, or I put the scissor, then the paper, and then my hand, and then I just pull it off. And I also like this where you tear it and it leaves the white from the paper. I think that takes it up a notch. This is actually, that was screaming to me, but then I saw this one. And I think that that is so cute. And let's see, I think I might skip the tree, and I'm going to look for one of these purple butterflies. I think that one's too big. Oh, I think that is cuter. And now we're going to do the same with the butterfly. We're going to just distress her a little. And remember, when you're distressing, like you saw me just do, always err on the side of less, and you can always add more. And then I'm going to leave the cake where I'm not going to add any distressing to the cake, but I am going to, let's see, it's so hard to pick stuff up with these nails. Okay, let's do cherished. And I always love doing this with labels. I think that it, like, just even that takes it to the next level. I like that little curling. And so now, before I glue anything down or make any decisions, I'm going to look around at my, I kind of like the ABC right here pointed out. And I kind of like the cake because I think I'm going to cover some of it with that. So I think I'm going to assemble this, and then afterwards I'm going to distress the edges on here. And so all 4 of my edges, or at least 3 of them, will be distressed. So we'll stick this here. And so you can see my bottom piece is the most covered. Then the second piece, which is the middle, or in this case, the butterfly, and then the cake, and then my label. And then we're going to go back through. I like the idea of a notch, so I'm just going to go in with my scissors, and I'm going to cut that little notch out. I think that that gives it more personality. And then I am going to just tear off a piece of the corner. So you can already see that this one is just a little more finished with distressing it. Now we're going to take it up one more level. So I'm going to take this one, and we'll ink this one. I'll grab my inks with you. And you can always start by distressing as the base, meaning you can distress a little bit, and then once you've layered your pieces, if you want to distress more, you can. And of course, this is all just examples. You can do this to the extent that you want. You could really just do this, and here you have a little cluster. And these are perfect. You can stick these onto an envelope. You can, if you saw the little matchbook, these would be great on top of a matchbook. If you are making a little, I have this little mini album, that would be perfect on top of that. So the limit, or the uses for it are limitless. And if you want, you can get one of these little muffin tins from Dollar Tree, and then just put your little snippets inside there, and they're You keep them on your desk, and then they're ready to use whenever you are working on a project. Okay, since we're taking this up a notch on this one, I'm going to go ahead and distress more. We're going to ink, and then we're also going to add some pieces beneath that are not part of the kit, but I'm going to toy with some music paper just because it's sticking out right here, and this one actually has some texture paste on it. So actually this would not be bad, these little dots right here. And to just make it organic, I'm just going to just cut off a little piece like that. And what's really great about this, because we're working with small pieces, we can use the tiniest of little scraps to make a beautiful collage. And if you don't have music paper, just find another paper that has a different texture. So I've printed all of my ephemera out on 110-pound cardstock in white. And then anything else that I use, and that all of these pieces are printed like that. Then if you use anything that is especially thinner, I think lends itself really well to this, that will offset the texture, and that works really well together. And then let's add the sweet. And I know I said I was going to distress it. I will, but I'm just like looking to see where it lies, that way I know what to distress. And in this case, instead of having my label to be the top piece, I'm actually going to sandwich it between my scrap paper and my cake. Whenever I distress, I tend to go with something like this. This is a really dense, you can see here, makeup brush. I feel like it doesn't waste as much product as some other ways, like sponges kind of really absorb the distress oxide. And I'm using Vintage Photo and Brush Corduroy. Those are my two favorites. The Brush Corduroy leans on yellow, and so what I usually like to do, and I'm just going to use the back of this cutting mat, what I usually like to do is just dip it lightly, and I'm going to just add little like pieces of the yellow, just like you would get foxing. That's what kind of I'm a little emulating. Maybe I'll add a little to this just because I have some left over. And then I'll go in with the Vintage Photo. Now, I don't worry about cross contamination with my brush or with the inks. If you do, then definitely, switch out your brush. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to slide it on the edge so that it gives me a little bit of a darker rim. I like that some of this is peeking out over the edge. I think all things like that, when you do things like that, it just lends itself to be more organic. Okay, we said we're not going to stick it in all the way. We're going to go here where you can still read that it says sweet, but it's not. It's not completely visible. And I'm just going to add some glue. I said this in my last video. I'm having some issues with my glue, and I think it's the weather. It's getting stuck. Yeah, like usually that, if I have the other thing I've bent this thing up so much that it doesn't, it's not even stopping the glue from clogging up. I need to make another. And I had a sweet friend, her name is Laura, and her channel is Vintology by Lola, and she made this beautiful charm for me, the glue stopper. Isn't that pretty? I've never had one before. If you've watched any of my bead videos, I'm a little scared of beads, of beading. I don't know why. But see, we all have things that push us outside of our comfort zone. Because this had the texture paste or modeling paste, I need to hold on to it for a minute because there's so much texture underneath. Now, another thing you can do while I'm holding this to dry is I'm just going to grab, I have a little piece of scrap paper next to me, and then I can always layer this on top of something else if I wanted to have a little more size on this. And you'd be surprised, it does add quite a bit to it. And you can see the difference. And I'm going to go ahead and add, I'm going to leave this one without staples. Another thing I like to do when I'm making clusters is instead of gluing all the way at the edge, I allow the edges to kind of have some movement. And so if you were to pick it up, you can see that it's not completely glued down. And that is completely different from all of these. And now let's add a little bit of fabric. So we can kind of go in steps. And when you're doing this, this is a really fun project to do when you are just sitting and watching TV or doing something else that you don't need to necessarily completely focus on. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and add, actually, what if, I like that. I'm going to go ahead and stick this down with a staple. And then I'm going to just take whatever was left over of on my brush, and I'm going to go over this whole thing. I'm going to lightly distress this one so it's not going to have that much distressing. And then let's see, I like, since this is all nature, I like the word nature, but again, I don't, okay, this is another thing. So I'm covering up the back. We can still see some of the lettering here. I want this somewhat covered up, and I started doing this, I could just lay it there and cover it up, but I love that little number here. So I'm going to wedge this in a way where I can see the word and the number, which I think is going to be going mostly on top of this butterfly. But what I'm going to do, oh, I could flip the butterfly up like that. Actually, that works perfect. It's beautiful. And as you keep going, you start getting kind of more creative with it and pushing the envelope, so to speak, where you're going to start adding extra things. I think I have a piece of fabric here, and so I could add it like that. I could also have wedged some fabric in between the butterfly and the tree. I kind of like this though, where it gives just a little bit of a glimpse of the fabric without being too overpowering. And I like that my fabric is where this edge is bent, because then I can, it looks like it's more worn. And I like this edge right here where it's sticking out. I think that's another important thing about layering clusters, is having, instead of having everything where it's perfect and completely squared, where you have pieces that stick out. I think that that adds a lot of character. I think this one might be my favorite. And you saw we didn't even do very much to it. Let's do another one together. I hope you're seeing how simple this is. Oh, let's do this. Let's actually, I thought I had a piece of lace. I do. Okay, I'm going to take a tiny bit of this. That tiny little piece. And I'm going to put it here, and then I'm going to add that on top. And on this one, I'm not even going to add a sentiment. Let's see if I can. There we go. Or am I? Let's see. I kind of like that. And I want to make sure that I have fabric down there. I'm going to just staple this. I think everything's in place. Look at how simple that was, and how much depth and dimension, and how beautiful this is. And now again, if you wanted to go steps further and you want to distress this and make it more grungy, then you can go as deep or not. Also, you can make these, and for example, I make these like this, and then I say later, oh, I want to make them more grungy. I can always make them more grungy, especially when you staple them like this, because I can still fit my scissors through here to try to distress this as well as this. So that might be a plus for sure for using your stapler. Let's use that one. We're going to use that one. And I know for sure, because these pinks are so similar, that I want something to break it up. A different color. That, and then some of these have blue in them. This is pretty. I think I could do this little brown one that is a little bit smaller. And put it off of the cake like it's a little decoration. actually kind of like that, and maybe we can add I'm just gonna fold this. Like that sharp corner, so I'll do something with that in a second, but I don't want to drop this. And then I am going to see how many things I can do without letting go of this. I'm actually going to stick this here. What if, no, I think that somehow takes away from it. Oh, I think right there it looks really good. Really, the hardest part about this is holding all the pieces together. I like the edge here peeking out, but I think I like that better, and I'm going to go ahead and staple it. Another thing I wanted to show you, my sewing machine right now is off, like I don't have it set up. So I wanted to show you, for those of you that maybe you don't have a sewing machine available, or you don't even own a sewing machine, but you like the look of the stitches, I wanted to show you what you can do. I'm just going to take the edge here, that wherever I can see the edge, and I'm going to just taking a gel pen, and this is one of my favorites, the Energel. It's the 0.5 size, and I'm going to add little faux stitches here. And if you had a white pen, you can do that. The Jelly Roll white is the best white that I have found. And I'm not going to forget here. And I'm going to actually flip this. There we go. There we go. And that little bit just added extra faux texture to it. The other thing you can do is do some lines, and you want to be very light. It's okay that they're squiggly and not even. Even like right here where you see where it's darker in some areas than not, I think that that looks really good. The thing to achieve that is you're going to hold your pen up some so that you almost don't have control over it. And then we're going to go a couple of times so that it looks like messy sewing. And then right here, I don't love this because there's a gap. So right here, you can see the gap is very small. I really like that. And then this gets big, but I don't want to add too much. I'm gonna go there. I think that that's good. And now we'll decorate this one. I'm going to take one of the ones that I have that I cut as a square, and again just using my leftover whatever's on my brush, and I'm pushing down pretty hard to try to get the product out. And you can see it definitely changed the color, but very slightly. See them next to each other. So this just gives it a little bit of warmth. And so we're going to take this And because this is cut as a square, I'm using it the same way that I'm using this bottom anchor piece. And I'm going to grab some tissue paper or pattern paper. I'm just going to get a little snippet. I don't know if I'll leave that triangle in there, but we're gonna see how it looks with it. I kind of like that. I like that. So I think I'm going to just cut this little piece off. And look how much that upgraded that. So pretty. And let's see, I like this golden. So now I wanted to show you, let's say you want to, and I don't know if I already showed you this or not, but let's say you want to, remember how I showed you could like kind of wedge it in between pieces? I'm going to do the same thing. Trying to hold on to my piece so that it doesn't move around on me, but I'm going to cut a slit right here. That's it. And now I can wedge this here. Or I can wedge it like this, which is, I think, what I want to do. And I am going to add a staple. I think that got all the pieces. And again, if you want to be safe, then definitely add some glue behind your pieces. But because I have my like faux stitching there, I'm going to add it to here, and I'm going to try to follow the line, but again, we want it to be more kind of messy. And now that ties in the two lines. Let's make one more, and then we'll call it, I'm going to go with a pink one, and I'm going to grab this fabric. I'm going to just cut a kind of a long rectangle shape out of it because I'm going to pleat this. And I think it's a little too thick. So I'm going to smooth that down. But while it's like this, I can actually use this for several projects. I'm going to grab that and cut the edge off. I love this edge right here where it's like disheveled. So I'm actually going to just flip that. And that's going to be my edge. Look how pretty that is already. And because I know this is going to move around on me, I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to hold this in place. So I don't have to try to like octopus hand it. Okay, I absolutely adore that already. It's only up from here. So cute. Maybe, I think what I'm going to do is I like the edge of this tree. I'm going to just cut that down. And I'm going to just tuck it in here. and I'll be covering, and actually I think I want to do maybe a tree that, oh, I don't think I've used a green yet. Oh, I have. But I'm going to use something like this that has more dimension. So I'm going to go in and I'm just going to cut the leaves to make it look like I'm fussy cutting without having to be so precise and get exactly the print. I'm just over exaggerating my edges being more column squiggly. And so what I do to do that is I'm actually using my non-dominant hand to move the paper instead of the scissors. The scissors I'm gently going up and down, and then this hand is just moving it. So if I move it like this, it's going to give me that edge that I'm looking for. And I'm going to show you on regular paper how this looks. We're just going to do this part because I don't care if, and we might actually cut this in half so that we can stick it here, because I think I glued and I won't be able to, yeah, I think I'm going to just cut it in half and I'll be able to use the other half for something else. Oh, and while we're doing that, let me grab a scrap piece of paper. Okay, so if I was fussy cutting and I just cut straight across, that's right, we know that. If I'm doing this and moving my paper, so on that one, you could see I moved my scissors instead of the paper as much. Let me move this. I'm going to now move the paper. And so with my scissor, all I was doing is putting just a tiny bit of pressure as it's going down. And you can see that I got a lot more edges here. And you can do that too if you're trying to add like a decorative edge. That might actually look cute here. That's exactly why I don't usually like to glue all the way down, because it's inevitable. I always end up adding extra stuff. Okay, I think that's fine. And then we're going to add our tree on top. And see, now we're just getting a little more intricate and we're just painting our story out. Where's my, there it goes. This guy wants to keep moving. I notice sometimes when I play back the videos that I toss stuff. I'm like, why did I do that so aggressive? And I actually don't think I really like the decorative edge, so I'm going to go back to Plan A. And you can't even tell it's a tree really, or you kind of can, but what I like about it is it can be a ruffle. We just made that tree into a ruffle. Ta-da! And I think that that's charming, so that's what we're going to add here. Now on this one, I'm going to add, actually I'm not going to add anything. I'm going to try to just lay it down right here. And on this one, I am going to distress this. Another way that I like to distress is I'll take my piece and I'm going to just lightly press it into the ink, and whatever happens, happens. And if I wanted to, I could just smooth that out a little bit. And I'm going to try and get all of the pieces together. So I think I did get everything. Look how pretty that is. And if I wanted to add it, this is a doily that I painted, but pretend that it's not painted. If I wanted to add like a decorative edge on the back, I think that would be really pretty. You could also layer it with other papers like we did before. Something else I like to do is, here's some book page with some stamped out leaves, and I think that that would look very pretty, that edge. I think we're going to go ahead and use it. On the bottom, I'm going to cut a little bit. So normally I'd want it about right there just to have a small edge. I'm going to cut it a little bit bigger so that I can show you how I'll crinkle this up. Okay. So a big tip that I will give you for layering, because if you saw there was a leaf pattern on the back of that, and your brain's going to say, don't cover that up, we need to see that, but it's okay, we have the little details here. So what I do is I ignore it. I don't look at the details, and I think about my finished project instead of what I'm actually covering up. And so all I'm doing here is I'm going to fold it up and then fold it somewhat back down at an angle. And I might cut some of this off. Yeah, I think that it'll look nice if I just break that off so it's not so uniform. And it looks more unintentional, which I think always is nice, because then it doesn't look like you're trying so hard, like it just happened organically. That's so pretty. I love all the texture here between the different types of paper, and the more you can layer with different types of thickness of papers or fabrics, I think that's what really takes your pieces to the next level. And it also really embellishes the story that you're trying to tell, because before we just had a card, a cake, and a charm, and a tree. And now we have told, like, what is this? It's saying charm, it has a little cake, maybe this was a recipe card, maybe, or a torn piece of a recipe card. Maybe this was a piece that was in a scrapbook or a nature journal. Who is this person? What are they trying to say? What feelings are evoked in this design? And so you can take this to so many levels. I think we're going to end there, or else the video I'll just keep making these because they're completely addictive. But I think that they're super cute. I'd love to hear which one you like the most. And let's see, if I had to pick a favorite. So I think these two are my favorites, and which is funny because they're the more simple ones. And I tend to do that sometimes. Oh, I forgot one. I do like that one a lot. That one was kind of my favorite as well. And so I would say these three are my favorite, but I think these two are the ones that stand out to me. So let me know which ones you like the best. And I just want to thank you so much for being here today. If you found this video encouraging, inspiring, or it's something that you want to share with someone, I would so appreciate it if you send it to your BFF and share it with them so that they can get inspired today as well. And of course, if you liked it and enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed, I would love for you to do that as well. I thank you so much for being here, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Until next time, love you. Bye.